Hey guys, OG Albine here, bringing you guys my APA Little Cup Wi-Fi Season 1 draft analysis. If you guys were wondering where the Little Cup content was at on the channel, being the Little Cup Showdown Season 2, I ended up, stopping recording that simply because I knew that I was going to be a part of this league and it is upload required. I would rather upload, also the Wi-Fi content and not, oversaturate and have too much Little Cup stuff on the channel. But, we will be returning to having some Little Cup mons and stuff like that on the channel, which is, a great breath of fresh air from a standard Gen 7, as it is getting a bit stale as we come up on Sword and Shield in the next couple of months. But yeah, if you guys are excited for this upcoming season, the return to Little Cup content on the channel, be sure to like the vid, subscribe, and all that stuff, just so you can catch the battles as they go up in the future. But yeah, with that being said, let's just jump into the draft analysis. So in this draft, once again, just like in Showdown, I was stuck with a middling pick. I forget, it was somewhere between like 7 and 12. I want to say it was like around the 10 mark though. I don't remember exactly. The draft happened a while back, so I wasn't expecting to get what I wanted. I went into the draft kind of with the same mindset as I usually do: grab the best things, best thing left available, and build around it. But I did want to try a few specific mons in particular. I wanted to try Yenfu, I wanted to try Volibee. Those obviously went very, very early in the draft. And I also wanted to try Abra, and I didn't think it would fall to me. It hasn't fallen to me in any of the drafts yet that I've done for Little Cup. But come our pick, to my surprise, it did end up lasting to us. So I definitely jumped on that right away. Abra is amazing in Little Cup. Base 90 speed, giving it that speed tier of 19 is phenomenal. Outspeeds a good majority of the tier. It's incredibly strong in base 105 special attack. That's like that's a pretty good stat for a normal standard mon not in Little Cup. So it hits like an absolute truck. Has pretty decent coverage in like Psychic, Shadow Ball, Signal Beam, Dazzling Gleam, Energy Ball. Has access to dual screens, which is cool. Has access to Trick, which we can't take advantage potentially with our ability Magic Guard. Most of the time, Magic Guard is going to be utilized on Abra to give it, like a Focus Sash and guarantee lives one hit and pretty much revenge anything in the tier, which is very, very valuable, honestly. That's probably how I use it most of the time. Just not being hit by hazards and stuff like that. Being able to live one hit and knock something out is invaluable. Also lets us abuse lets us abuse Life Orb, to where we aren't taking that chip, and makes us hit stupid hard. Life Orb and Magic Orb with a 105 base special attack is pretty terrifying in all honesty. It hits super hard. But even there are some niche things we can do, like maybe like a Trick Flame Orb set could put in some work to cripple some physical attackers, or like a Trick Toxic Orb to poison some things. That kind of stuff. Maybe even like Flagging Tail if we're feeling, extra spicy. But most of the time it's going to be for Focus Sash and Life Orb. So yeah, Abra is an amazing Pokemon. I'm glad we ended up being able to draft it. And going forward in the draft, I wanted to build around Abra as well as possible. Cover its weaknesses to where we can potentially win late game with, an Abra and stuff like that. So, one thing that Abra definitely struggles with are Dark types, and some bulky Psychics can switch into it pretty well and take it on. So I wanted to get something that could handle both of those, and we ended up picking up Scraggy with our second pick. In my opinion, Scraggy synergizes with Abra very, very well. It takes care of those Dark types and those Psychic types with its dual stabs. It's one of the better knockoff switch-ins in the tier as well, being able to 4 times resist it. Has access to 3 great abilities in Shed Skin, Intimidate, and Moxie. Most of the time, Intimidate and Moxie is going to come, but Shed Skin can definitely come if we're running like a rest set, like a rest bulk up, rest DD, or something like that. Definitely can come. Or just being able to, potentially get rid of, shrug off a burn later, or a Thunder Wave or something like that. So they're definitely 3 very, very useful abilities. Has access to Fake Out, which gives us some priority. And you'll see as this draft analysis goes on that our team has an absolute ton of priority, which is amazing in Little Cup. Priority is always great, being able to pick off things, that are more frail but are on the fast side and stuff like that. Has access in setup in Dragon Dance and Bulk Up, so depending on the set that we're running, we can run either just to outspeed things or just to outbulk things and potentially get our health back with things like Drain Punch and stuff like that. It's also a pretty decent Scarfer as well. It hits the 15, that base 15 speed tier, which isn't, you know, super slow, not super fast, but it can be a good Scarfer. And then 75 base attack is very strong as well. It, you know, spamming knockoff in a tier where most things are holding Eviolites and berry juices is super, you know, super threatening. It makes, you know, checks not be checks very much longer if you are able to knock off the Eviolite and stuff like that. So yeah, that's going to be Scraggy. I think it pairs very well with Abra. The only thing that they don't both deal with are potentially some fairy types and stuff like that. So next up, I wanted to pick up a very good fairy resist, and we did so in picking up Honedge right here. So Honedge does serve as a great fairy resist for Scraggy. It is very bulky. With an Eviolite, you know, base 45 HP is meh, but 100 defense is very bulky. SpDef isn't great, but, you know, it does make up for it in the Eviolite. In all honesty, it lets it live a lot more hits and stuff like that. It gives us a decent fighting check as well. While Honedge definitely doesn't want to take a knockoff, it can switch in on the fighting stab moves and just about anything else physical, eat them up, and you know, throw off a big hit in return. So it's definitely a good check in that respects. Base 80 attack is obviously very strong. Has access to Sword Stance, which is great. We can potentially hit some things pretty hard. Has access to Autotomize as well, which most people don't think of because it is a pretty slow mon, but it does hit 13 speed at max speed. So potentially getting off an Autotomize and getting up to 26, that still outspeeds everything in the tier, barring some Scarfers and stuff like that. So that is definitely very valuable in my opinion. And it also has access to Shadow Sneak for priority, so it's even more priority on our team. Being able to throw off stab Shadow Sneaks can be great, especially if they're, you know, boosted at +2 and stuff like that. So yeah, that's going to be Honedge. And then next up, I wanted to grab a Fire Resist. We kind of cover Honedge's, you know, Honedge is really only weak to, you know, scary things are like dark types, ground types. Ground we don't really necessarily have covered yet, but I think we do have dark pretty well covered at this point with Scraggy. I do want to pick up some more dark resist later on, which we do, but with this next pick, I want to pick up a fire resist because I don't have one, and there are some pretty scary fire types in the tier. So next up, we dipped into, oh no, spoilers. Oh, and I guess I'm out of order. Next up, we did not pick up our fire resist. I guess this is a fire resist, but we ended up picking up Magby with our first free pick. Magby at a tier 2. Whoops. Base 45 HP, 37 defense, so pretty frail, honestly. 55 SpDef, but base 75 attack, 70 special attack, and 83 speed. So this is another blazing fast mon. You know, 19 speed, pretty much outspeeds everything in the tier. Has access to priority in Mach Punch, I believe. Has access to Thief, which is very nice for stealing items if we do lose our item or something like that. We have access to Flame Charge and boosting our very fast speed already. It's a great mixed attacker. And it has access to Belly Drum. Belly Drum Magby is pretty terrifying, in all honesty. You know, getting a Belly Drum and a Flame Charge up pretty much means game. You know, you also have access to Mach Punch to prioritize, you know, get a +6 Mach Punch off is super threatening. So Magby is, you know, a very terrifying mon in Little Cup, honestly. I think the ability to go mix and stuff like that and, you know, hit on both sides very hard is great. It's great with a Life Orb. You know, it's great, you know, potentially with the Z move. It's great with Berry Juice to abuse, you know, the Belly Drum and stuff like that. So yeah, definitely really excited to use Magby. And then next up after Magby, I believe, there's our fire resist that I was talking about earlier. We have Seal right here. So Seal is very bulky. Great fire resist, has access to thick fat, and is a pure water type. So it essentially 4 times resists fire, which is great for our Honedge. It's very bulky with an Eviolite too. 65 HP, 55 defense, and 70 SpDef is very bulky. And this is another mon with a ton of priority. It has access to Fake Out, it has access to Aqua Jet, it has access to Ice Shard. So that's 3 forms of priority just in this one mon alone. It can hit on both sides pretty much equally the same. It has some pretty cool utility in moves like Encore, moves like Disable, and then it can also Perish Trap with Perish Song and Whirlpool, which can be, you know, very annoying, you know, eliminating a threat to our team, you know, potentially letting one of our other mons go in and win a game potentially. So that does make Seal a very good budget water in my opinion in tier 3. Buddy Silver Sheriff is, you know, always, you know, speaks high praise of this mon, so I'm very excited to use it. yeah, obviously he knows what he's doing. So if he says it's good, it's probably pretty good pick for us in this season. So definitely synergizes with the team well. Excited to use Seal. So next up, we picked up Swinub. Up to this point, we did not pick up a ground type or a stealth rocker, and Swinub fit both of those marks for me. Gives us that ground type to where we can soak up volt switches, and then gives us our first stealth rocker, obviously, so we can set up hazards, break potential sashes, things like that. It's dual stab, just like Mamoswine is in like OUUU and just standard draft. The dual stab between ice and ground is absolutely nasty, and it gives us even more priority in Ice Shard. Ice Shards from this thing don't tickle. It is still very strong. Despite being base 50 attack, just those dual stabs hitting so many things super effectively and throwing on a life orb onto that is pretty menacing. It's a pretty decent Scarfer as well. I've seen Scarf Swinub very often with its base 15 speed tier, just like Scraggy. It can be used as a Scarfer pretty effectively. And yeah, that's going to be Swinub. Really excited to use it. I love using Mamoswine in standard, so hopefully this can put in just as much work as that does for me. Yeah, next up, we are going to pick up Flabebe. I wanted another Dark Resist for our Abra and our Hone Edge. We only had Scraggy, and that puts a lot of pressure on it to take pretty much every knockoff, all the hits from that thing. So I ended up getting a Fairy type in Flabebe. It also, stops Dragon Spam versus me. People can't just lock into Outrage. Despite we do have a Hone Edge and, a Seal and a Swinub that can potentially deal with those things defensively in Hone Edge, and then Seal and Swinub can hit them with Ice Shards, Ice Beams, Icicle Spears, stuff like that. But this does give us an immunity, which is very, very important in my opinion. It has access to Calm Mind. It can be a pretty decent sweeper, access to Synthesis so it can heal itself up, and it gives us a Cleric and a Wish Passer, which is very nice for, our bulky Eviolite users in like Hone Edge and Seal and Scraggy and stuff like that. Being able to heal them up if they're not holding, like a Berry Juicer and they're not like a Rest Talk set or something like that, can be very, very valuable. And then, getting rid of burns on Mons and, Toxics and Thunder Waves and stuff like that is always, very valuable as well. So yeah, after Flabebe, I believe our next pick, we dip into tier 4 and pick up Bonsly. Honestly, I think Bonsly is an absolute steal in tier 4. I think it's one of the best, if not the best Mon in tier 4. Access to Sturdy, so we can run Sturdy Juice sets. Very, very bulky on the defensive side. 50 HP and 90 defense. It's very good physically, just being able to eat pretty much any hit, especially, with the Sturdy. You're pretty much always eating any hit, and getting back up to full, and getting up. It does give us another Stealth Rocker, so that we're not forced to bring Swinub every week, or if we're bringing Swinub, we're not forced to run rocks on it, which is very, very important. And it actually still hits pretty hard with base 80 attack. So it hits harder than Swinub, actually. Hits harder than Scraggy, technically, prior setup. And it hits, just as hard as Hone Edge. So Bonsly is honestly an absolute steal in tier 4. I honestly think it should be tier 3. That's why I dipped into it so early and grabbed my, tier 4 before other people really were dipping into there very often. But yeah, that's going... Oh, and also... I didn't know this actually until after the draft, but Bonsly has access to Sucker Punch, so that is another Pokemon with priority. The only ones on our team right now that do not have access to priority are Abra, the Flabebe. So everything else has some form of priority. So Focus Sash users, Frail setup isn't going to be able to beat us in all honesty, as long as we play correctly and all that stuff. So next up, after Bonsly, we're dripping into our last 2 free picks. I believe we have enough for a tier 2 and a tier 4 or 2 tier 3s. At this point in the draft, there wasn't really much I liked in tier 3 left. It was pretty barren, honestly, when it comes to Mons that were good. But in tier 2, I saw Teddy Ursa, and I really, really like Teddy Ursa. It's one I've really been wanting to try in Little Cup. Quick Feet is great for speed control, being able to double our speed with the Toxic Orb and throw off, super strong facades, and hit pretty much everything in the tier. Normal spam is always very, very strong. It also has access to Close Combat for Steel types, Superpower for Steel types, and then Crunch and Shadow Claw for the Ghost type. So everything that, isn't hit by the normal stab is covered by a coverage move or something like that. Has access to Swords Dance as well, and that makes it a very, very threatening sweeper, as well as Bulk Up. I think Swords Dance will come more often, especially if we're a Quick Feet set, because we can't really rely on longevity and getting up multiple bulk ups and stuff like that. But if you SD on a turn where you're forced to switch and then your toxic or procs, you can honestly just win the game if things are chipped enough. It also has access to taunt, which gives us really fast taunt if it is if we do have our quick feet activated. So yeah, Teddy Ursa is going to be a very, very threatening mon. I'm excited to use it. Next up, if you look at our team, you kind of realize that we don't have any removal, and it's not as important in Little Cup to have removal, but it is definitely important, in my opinion, just to have that fast on your team, just so teams can't just look at you and say, oh, I'm going to hazard stack you and you're going to lose. So with our last tier 4 pick, I ended up picking up Pidove. Honestly, not a great Pokemon, but it is, it does give us a defogger, pretty decently fast at base 15, so we can get it off against most things. Gives us more priority and quick attack, gives us access to U-turn, Tailwind, Taunt, stuff like that. So it's not an overly amazing mon. The only reason we really have it is because it was the best defogger left in tier 4, and I figured I needed to pick that up as to not just lose to hazard stack. Unfortunately, it doesn't have like any physical flying stat, other than Fly doesn't get access to Brave Bird or anything, so it is lacking on that end. But honestly, it's